What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. For the last few days, I've been covering the tensions that are mounting in Canada when we talk about Alberta separation, when we talk about the fallout from Canada's general election. Now, I've said, and many people have dismay, that the stereotypical liberal boomer crowd voted in favor of their investments, their wonderful $3 million houses that they bought for $30,000, that they voted out of ignorance for a government that they were so scared about Donald Trump that they don't realize the actual effect Donald Trump has on actual Canadian politics. When we talk about tariffs, we'll look no further than the dairy tariffs that are already slapped against the United States, and you'll start to understand that Canada has actually just as many crippling tariffs against the United States as they have against us. That being said, let's get into Danielle Smith. Now, she has said from day one since this election that she is not going to advocate for Alberta separation, that she was merely swapping out some rules so that if concerned citizens of Alberta, the people who gave her mandate, wish to push some form of a questionable ballot put forward, well, then she would certainly have to listen to her delegates. Again, very smart, calculated move by Danielle Smith to make sure she doesn't receive too much blowback from the federal government while this is happening. We've talked about how Preston Manning is starting to assert himself into the situation. We've seen countless interviews with super lawyer Keith Wilson talking about how many have said it's not possible, it's not going to happen, you're going to have issues with those who have treaties. Keith Wilson has already explained all of those things, and he's explained how there is a very simple legal path to Alberta separation when it comes to the vote being put through. Keep in mind, this is uncharted territory. No province has done this before successfully. There's videos out there claiming that there's a vote that's going to go down in June. I don't buy that. There's nothing that's been announced. I will reiterate that Alberta Prosperity Project, as well as others that are working towards this goal, have said many, many times this is going to be calculated. It's going to be executed quickly. However, when we say quickly, we're talking months, not years. They will not pull the trigger on this vote until they are certain that not only do they pass the threshold for the roughly 177,000 required signatures to start the process of a referendum vote, but they're not going to jump into this unless they are certain there's enough support within Alberta for separation. Now, if I were to go to our comment sections, if I were to go to the consensus on social media, and what I hear as I'm out in the general public, I would say that the numbers are definitely in the favor of separation these days. Many people outpouring from other provinces that they support Alberta, that they agree with Alberta. Thank you to everybody as an Albertan for your support, by the way, because again, nobody in Canada, like, and I say that as an Albertan, wants to see Alberta separate out of any form of hatred or anger towards actual Canadians. This is them saying they've had enough of their government. They've had enough of the abuse from the federal government. It's time for a change. Keith Wilson has very clearly clarified that when it comes to the Indigenous, well, they must sit at the table if a vote goes through. The federal government must sit at the table. They can't simply say, we don't want to talk about it or we don't like the results of that vote. They are obligated by law to sit down and talk. Now, when it comes to Indigenous, because a lot of people have been asking me, what does it mean if the Indigenous don't want to get on board with Alberta succession? Well, all that means is there's going to be little tiny pockets of federal run land still within Canada, while the rest of Alberta remains independent. Keep in mind that nobody in this process has talked about a 51st state yet, though some form of a deal working with the United States would definitely be put on the table. And if that results in a 51st state, well, that has yet to be seen. Again, we're in uncharted territory here. Many people have said, well, what about the oil that's on Indigenous land? What about all the resources that are there in quantity? How would you get your resources to market? Again, all of that is very rough in the early stages of planning. And while people think they have the upper hand, those who are in charge of separation, I know I'm babbling here, but I'm just laying out the groundwork that, again, this is being very well calculated. This is being well thought out and well executed. It is not going to be a rush slop job. But Danielle Smith, yesterday, laying down the gauntlet, throwing down the gauntlet, essentially showing where she stands when it comes to this, whether directly or indirectly. She has made her stake that she is standing up and defending the rights of Albertans, that she will not bow down to a federal globalist government, one that has net zero on the minds, and one that punishes Alberta for trying to get its products to market. I got to give kudos to Danielle Smith. She's been doing the job that a lot of politicians aren't doing. In fact, when you look at Team Canada and the whole elbows up brigade, Danielle Smith is one that's been looking for some form of solution, some form of everybody coming down and agreeing that we're not going to fight at the table, that there's a workable solution. Folks like Doug Ford, who's a traitor to the conservative brand, would rather say Canada's not for sale with his hats that are made in China. We've talked a great extent about the way things are going. I want to show where Danielle has actually stood up and essentially said without saying that Alberta's had enough and Alberta will not put up with any more mistreatment from the federal government. Let's take a look at her press conference from yesterday.
Protecting the reliability and affordability of our electricity is of utmost concern for our government, because this is about protecting the lives and livelihoods of Albertans. And what did the feds tell us, Alberta, when we tried voicing our very real and serious concerns about these regulations? They told us, too bad, we're going to do it anyway. In fact, they refused to work with Alberta or listen to Canadians while developing their net zero electricity regulations. Do they really expect us to just freeze in the dark? Sadly, such uncaring arrogance is typical of this Liberal government. And that is why last November we introduced the first Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act resolution so that our province could take strong and effective action against these destructive regulations. And today, we are taking another step to protect Albertans' livelihoods by challenging the constitutionality of the net zero electricity regulations in the Court of Appeal of Alberta, and we look forward to making our case. Alberta will no longer tolerate having our livelihoods threatened, our industries targeted, and our resources landlocked by Ottawa. We will not accept their reckless and dangerous policies that will harm our economy, stifle our energy industry, jeopardize the reliability of our electricity grid, and raise electricity prices for Albertans. Prime Minister Mark Carney must immediately commence working with our government to reset the relationship between Ottawa and Alberta with meaningful action rather than hollow rhetoric. We will not sit by quietly. Albertans expect to be treated with fairness and respect, just like any other province in this country. Our government will not blindly accept unconstitutional net zero regulations that put Albertans in harm's way. We will always stand up and fight for our province, and we will not let Albertans freeze in the dark. And with that, I would like to invite Minister McAmery to speak more to this issue.
Now, with that coming out, the way that Danielle put that, again, very calculated, very precise. But these are, and people are going to say, Fringe, she never said that she supports separation. She never said that she's pushing for separation. If you listen closely to the way that that was structured, it's that Albertans aren't going to be taken advantage of anymore. That they're going to go to the Federal Court of Alberta. They're going to look at the laws. They're going to push back against the federal government. Keep in mind, Danielle Smith has done this multiple times already. When it comes to the No More Pipelines Act, when it comes to plastics, single-use plastics like plastic straws, plastic bags, they've gone to the court, and not only the provincial court, but the federal court, the Supreme Court of Canada, and had these events overruled as unconstitutional, yet the federal government doesn't recognize it. They don't want to do anything about it. This is where I say that she's paving the way for Alberta separation. She's laid out the groundwork that Albertans will not be abused, mistreated, misrepresented at the table by the federal government, that we're not going to put up with a mistreatment of this province any longer. Justin Trudeau had us under his boot for so long. Mark Carney's been warned, you cannot do this to us. You cannot have a sovereign nation without a unity crisis if you want to continue treating Alberta with zero respect, without acknowledging the needs of Albertans or the needs for energy. Clean energy, I might add. Keep in mind, Alberta has the cleanest and safest oil practices in the world when it comes to extraction of oil and fracking. In fact, while people like Leonardo DiCaprio and Jane Fonda do helicopter tours over top of oil sands, what they're not told and what they don't want to admit, if they were to find out, is that the majority of those oil sands projects are left in better condition than when they're originally broken ground on. Quite often, those are turned into wildlife preserves. You wouldn't even tell the equipment was there. So why aren't we with this government, with Stephen Guilbeault, with this massive net zero push? Why wouldn't we be influencing the world to say that, hey, if we have the cleanest practices in the world, this is a resource we need. We should be taking the time to take a page out of Alberta's books and use those practices, which are the cleanest and safest, to extract all oil around the planet so as not to harm the environment. Well, the simple answer, friends, is follow the money. It has nothing to do with net zero. It has nothing to do with benefiting the environment. This all has to do with lining the pockets of those like Brookfield who have their stakes set in the ground for other oil markets other than Alberta. Um, Danielle basically laying it out that look, if you don't want to get in line with Alberta's needs, with Alberta's demands, this is where other groups, which she is not openly advocating for, will come forward with a question. Do you want to stay in Canada, or does Alberta want to pack its bags and leave? And I'm telling you as an Albertan, again, with the overwhelming comments that I've seen in the past few days on videos, on social media, everywhere else, not only is the majority of Canada supporting Alberta in its decision to put its foot down, because let's be honest, everyone wants to see the federal government be told to shove it, but Albertans are getting louder than ever and saying, we've had enough. We cannot endure another 4 years of this. For anybody doubting whether this is possible, whether it's going to go through, I'll tell you right now, as somebody who's been sharing the news with you, as somebody who's been looking into this very heavily, for somebody who wants the best for their family, the best for their children, and somebody who agrees with the reasons behind the push for separation, it still frightens the hell out of me that this is where we are as a country, that this is the divisiveness that our federal government is okay with sowing. They don't mind that these are the boiling tensions of citizens within their country. Because let's be honest, they never cared about Alberta to begin with. They won't care about Alberta when they're done. They don't care about Saskatchewan. They don't care about Manitoba. They care about their bottom line. That's it. It's all about money, folks. With that being said, let me know what you think down below. Do you think Danielle Smith is doing a good job at subliminally getting this message out that Alberta is moving towards separation? Do you believe that that's not a part of her rhetoric at all and that she will not support an open ballot for separatization? Let me know what you think down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are so close to hitting that 100,000 subscriber mark, folks. Hit your bell for all notifications so that you're alerted every time a video drops. YouTube doesn't like us talking about separation. We need to get past that algorithm. The thumbs up in the comments are the best way to do so, as well as hitting that subscribe button. Costs you nothing. It's absolutely free. Help the channel out a little bit, folks. And give me your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, again, just a reminder, every Friday night, we do Friday Night Fringe here on the channel, our weekly live streaming show, where I sit down with Mrs. Fringe and we go over everything that's happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, as well as hearing your Q&A within the greatest YouTube community on this platform, full stop. I look forward to chatting with you each and every Friday night to hear what you have to say, but I look most forward to hearing what you have to say tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, every Friday here on the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.